Practical Anarchy, A Guide to Self-Determination, Dickie Dredd. Section 43, Advertising as Violence. When we think of violence, we usually picture armies, police or prisons, but capitalism has developed another, quieter form of violence, the colonisation of imagination through advertising. It does not break bones, but it shapes desires, narrows horizons and coerces behaviour. It wages war not on bodies but on minds. Advertising is rarely framed this way. We are told it is about information, helping consumers make choices, yet its function is to manufacture needs, to create dissatisfaction where none existed, and to tether identity to commodities. It works by manipulating fear and desire. You are not attractive enough without this perfume, not successful enough without this car, not safe enough without this insurance. At scale, it becomes a form of psychological assault, repeated thousands of times a day across screens, streets and soundscapes. Its violence is systematic. Billions are spent not on making products better, but on persuading people they cannot live without them. Whole industries of psychologists and data analysts are employed to bypass rational thought and hook consumers emotionally and neurologically. The line between persuasion and coercion dissolves. In this sense, advertising is a cousin of surveillance capitalism, which we talked about earlier, extracting value not from what we buy, but from what data trails of how we can be nudged. The human costs are visible. As discussed earlier, mental health crises are amplified by endless comparison and manufactured insecurity. Social bonds are eroded as communities are redefined as markets. Even our language shifts. People are brands. Friendships are networks. Political movements are content. Advertising saturates not only what we buy, but how we see ourselves and others. Case study: Coca-Cola and the global reach of advertising. Few companies embody the violence of advertising more starkly than Coca-Cola. The drink itself is nutritionally negligible: sugar, caffeine and water. Yet it's been sold as happiness, youth and freedom across the globe. Through relentless advertising, Coca-Cola has embedded itself in cultural rituals, from Christmas via its use of the red-suited Santa Claus image to sports sponsorship and musical festivals. The effects go beyond consumer choice. Coca-Cola's advertising empire normalises the consumption of sugar-sweetened drinks, even in regions facing obesity and diabetes crises. It's been linked to water shortages in India and Latin America, where bottling plants extract vast quantities of groundwater, while advertising campaigns continue to associate the brand with vitality and joy. Here, advertising functions not just as persuasion, but as a shield for extractive corporate practice, obscuring harm behind carefully crafted images. According to linguistic marketing studies, the word Coca-Cola is recognised by over 94% of the world's population, ranking it as the second most understood word globally, right after the universal word OK. Case study: Facebook, Google and the digital advertising machine. Coca-Cola represents the old face of advertising. Facebook and Google embody its new one. Together they control more than half of the global digital advertising market. Their business model is not to sell products directly, but to harvest user data and sell hyper-targeted access to attention. Every click, like and pause is tracked, categorised and monetarised. This system has two consequences. First, it turns the internet into a surveillance machine. As Zuboff argues, platforms do not simply predict behaviour, they seek to shape it. By nudging what users see, they influence what people buy, believe, and even how they vote. Second, it corrodes democratic life. Political campaigns and disinformation can be micro-targeted at vulnerable groups, bypassing public debate and accountability. The Cambridge Analytica scandal showed how personal data was weaponised to sway elections, but the practice is ongoing, embedded in the business model itself. Here, advertising becomes indistinguishable from control. The line between persuasion and manipulation vanishes. The violence is not just psychological, but civic, eroding trust, fragmenting societies and fueling polarisation. Calling advertising a form of violence is not metaphorical excess. It recognises that coercion can be cultural as well as physical. Just as the state disciplines through law and money through debt, advertising disciplines through desire. To live under capitalism is to live in a battlefield of the mind, where the assault is constant, the aim is obedience to consumption. Later chapters will return to this when we consider the internet, social media and the commodification of attention, the newest frontiers of the war on the imagination. And as we will explore in chapter 7 and beyond, the only true escape from this coercion is to imagine societies organised around resources and needs, not markets and manipulations.